So MetLife. So when you think of innovation, insurance, I don't think the word cool would be the first word that comes to mind. But when you think of big data, boy, the opportunities you have in big data in insurance are enormous. So I am now just a little bit over a year in MetLife after about 18 years working on Wall Street. And it was like jumping back in time about 10 to 12 years. So the insurance industry as a whole, as you look at it, is 10 to 12 years behind where the banking was. Our goal is to leapfrog the industry. The industry being not just insurance, but financial services. So don't play catch up. Don't start playing this run book that we started 12 years ago and actually start playing through all the things that we know we need to do. That will happen. But while that's actually happening in parallel, let's jump ahead. Where do we need to get to in MetLife? And a lot of things had to happen to make this occur. So first off, technologists like us actually had to believe that we were capable of driving business decisions and knowing where the business needs to get to. So at the end of the presentation, if I have time, I'm going to demo an application in the App Store in Android market built by technology for the business as kind of a little bit of a side to say, hey, let's see where this goes, launched by technology for the first time ever in history. So that's something that's really radical out there, which is exciting to see. So how we're going to do that? We built the first big data system called the Wall. Now, what better than a wall to break down silos in a 145-year-old company, right? It's a little bit of a disruption right there, a contradiction in terms. What did we do? We said that the biggest problem in our company right now is customer centricity. Insurance companies see customers as policy traditionally. We need to recognize that a customer is more than just a policy number, and customers could have multiple policies. And when they call up a service center or a call center, we need to understand that customer. They're calling to change an address on an auto policy. By the way, they also have a retail life policy with us. Let's do it at the same time. And historically, 145 years of history has created segments and silos. So our goal was to break it down, and we did that with a simple concept. So over 1 billion people use Facebook today, right? I think 1.3 billion is the latest number. So we said, you know what? Facebook's got a really interesting user experience. You've got your page, your wall, and in your wall are your posts. You know, where you went for dinner, was it good, the movies you saw. So we kind of took a very innovative approach and we said, what if the posts were the actual financial transactions of a customer? And what if we could view a customer's wall? So when a customer calls a call center, instantly pops up a wall saying, here's all the interactions we've had with the customer, like posts. Well, if we could do that, number one, we don't need to train any associates. Most people know how Facebook works. Very simple. Number two, it changed the data model. So it made it so that a relational database couldn't satisfy the need we had for this purpose. And why haven't we been able to do this to date? So you've got the 3 V's in big data, right? The one in MetLife that was critical was variety. So MetLife offers products from retail and group. You have direct to customer through brokers. We have agency. We have investments. We do a lot of the lotteries, annuities that are in the States. And when you see a commercial with Charlie Brown on TV, that commercial, which is a simple $5,000 policy, is regulated differently in 50 different states and becomes 50 different products behind the scenes. You know, New York says we don't like what you call it something different. Illinois says the commission schedule's got to change. And it becomes 50 different products, every one of these. And my team operates in 46 countries, US being the largest, but Japan being second. So what we set out to do is build something very simple. We made a few ground rules. Number one, variety is the issue. So relational data models didn't meet the need. It would if we actually could normalize all the data and come to a common understanding. But for 10 years, that hasn't happened. So we looked at data solutions like MongoDB, which we were playing with before. And we looked at structures like JSON, which was appropriate to say, imagine if every customer was represented as a JSON document, just a description document. It's like XML for those who don't know what JSON is. It's readable, it's text. And every post and transaction is in the same document, and it's rendered instantly on the screen. The other thing we did was we said that it didn't have to be perfect. So we didn't yet show this to the end customers. We're keeping it internal. We have about 500 users so far using it day to day. And it's hard to see on the screen on the left, but there's these little bars that look like your cellular strength on your cell phone. We are creating on the fly confidence factors of data quality. So we basically said, don't try to get an MDM program, which we are working on. Don't get it absolutely perfect before we roll out. Roll out as good as we have today. Get it done. Show the value to the users, and we'll clean it up as we go. So the confidence factors, you might see only 2 bars, so maybe 66% might be the actual factor, which means something's wrong. Maybe we fat-fingered in the social. In insurance, what's interesting is we might have policies that are up to 100 years old. Socials didn't even exist. So we have to actually come up with a lot of algorithms to match customers to create the picture. Now what's interesting is you'll see here on the right side, in December, and we deployed 2 other walls into production, the Japan wall and the Greece wall. So we actually are showing this works outside the US, but what did we do in the US? We have 3 walls currently here. And there's a wall in the call center that's in production. What's fascinating is it was built in 3 months, beginning to end. About 80 developers working together across 60 teams, because there's 70 different legacy systems had to be created for that one wall to work. It's enormous. If you were thinking about an enterprise data warehouse strategy, you would think about how to bring that all together and normalize it. Now, the other wall that we created was a week later. And what's fascinating about that wall is we didn't even see it coming. We were focused on the first wall, but the team that came up and actually started to say what we could do with the wall started to show it to other business partners. And all of a sudden, we had a whole other experience built focused on transactions and details back since the beginning of time. And the third wall, which is going live in December, is an institutional view of the customer wall. So our group customers. You could literally start in the first wall in the call center. A call comes in, answer the call. You could go into the research wall, actually see the workflows and transactions, and did the claim get paid, and when did we pay it? The check receipts, the check scans. And you could then drill into the third wall and see at a company level how are we servicing General Motors as a customer, or MetLife as a customer, which we are. So we started with the walls, realized beginning to end 3 months. We created a prototype in 2 weeks. We demonstrated the value we could bring to the business. And once the requirements were known till production, 90 days, 3 months, and it hasn't, as I knock on wood here, I'll do it, but it hasn't gone down since we went live, which is fascinating. So 6 months, not a single blip in the system. So new technology never done before. So what did we do? There was three main points here. So we actually operated like a startup. Enthusiasm in the group, senior level leadership. So I was on the call with my peers and our executive team to show what we want. We sent the mission. We said we have 90 days to do this. We set the date, not the business. And the excitement on the call was so great that actually when we got to the 89th day and we were like a go, no go, it was like we had an issue on like 9 a.m. in the morning. We said we'll regroup at 2 p.m. There was an issue at 2 p.m. We'll regroup 4 p.m. We regrouped the next morning. We said go. So everyone wasn't like, oops, we got to start over. Let's go. And the other thing, as I mentioned, was the flexible database. So JSON as a structure is fascinating to see how that works. Now, there's definitely relational components about this. There is that matching algorithm. The first pass of the matching algorithm would have taken 900 days to process the data for 1 month's data. That's the traditional way that it was being done. We deployed what we call a SWAT team. And they actually did an algorithm which took 1 month of data, did it within the week, which is what we needed to get done. They then moved the algorithm into Hadoop, and it took 6 hours. So it shows you actually have to learn to use the right tools for the right purpose. And that's really what we have going on here. Now, that was the first one that we actually deployed, which is interesting. Now, when the research wall went out, as I mentioned, the data quality wasn't perfect. Okay? We knew we were about 80% there. The team came up with a really cool phrase, which is data Kaizen, because what they actually found was when people saw the data and sunlight hit the data, they saw where the errors were. Since we've gone live in March, we've actually improved about 3 million policies cleaned up. Not through an MDM management program, so where we actually disciplined and do this, but simply because 500 people have access to this data for the first time, and they're like, wow, we didn't know it was bad in the system. They see it. So it's a very interesting perspective. I mean, it demonstrates that we could be agile, we can move quickly. Now, our end goal is to get this to customers. So if you're a MetLife customer, our goal is to put this in your hand, so you don't have to call the call center to begin with and say, what status is your claim? You could check it yourself. And that will come. In addition, in the wall is something called the next best action. People like me, we call it. So we are doing some predictive analysis to say, if you hold this product set and you're this age demographic and live in this region, this location, what are people like you in our database? Remember, we have 90 million customers. So when I said the V is for variety, we have volume as well. There's 140 million transactions in the wall behind the scenes. And you're able to actually see kind of what is the product set that people like you have that you don't have. So very quickly, we could start to do more targeted direct marketing towards you, the right product sets that maybe hit you as a consumer. Now, we didn't stop there. So that was back in March, April, and that's every 2 weeks we're doing an iterative release on the wall. There's something else we wanted to do. So what do you have to do to be successful? Surround yourself with talent. Every level above you, below you. That's the number one thing to do. So we knew we had to recruit the best developers. We thought of what's the best problem to do and how to do that. So we want to steal people from Google and Amazon, right? That's our goal. To help build things like the wall and make that continuously go forward. We thought of a simple case. We said, what if we asked a developer, a rock star developer, to define themselves in a JSON document? So what's your skills? What's your career? Is your career encompassing your jobs and your jobs encompassing skills? So we actually came up with the idea. One of my SWAT developers built it using Node.js, Mongo, and using Azure Cloud, first cloud app we built. And it was built and deployed through every step of the process, compliance, legal, communications, in 10 days from concept through implementation. It was actually only 2 days of development. So this is a site, the wall is an internal site. If you go to metlife.synapse.com, you'll see this. And it's a site that you could actually see how we did it. There's a little button on the top right that's cut off. And full transparency, here's what we built. Here's what we did. There's now grown into real problems that we're asking engineers to solve. And it's just trying to say, how do you think? Don't worry about applying for a job. You could just try to solve a problem. And you don't have to apply for jobs. Now, the other thing that's interesting here is all of this technology, so Synapse and the wall, gave us contacts in companies who reached out and said, how did you do this? And one of the companies that we started to reach out to is, as you know, the VA, Veterans Affairs Group. So if you go to Synapse today, you actually will see we're doing a tech jam. So my team calls it the Hackacoda-Techathon because, hackathon people don't get the concept and codathon doesn't mean as much. So, but reality is that this Friday we're doing an actual a tech jam, a hackathon to benefit veterans in building a knowledge like the wall for veterans view, all on a mobile device. So it's pretty interesting, but it shows you what you could do quickly in technology. So it doesn't have to be years and years of progress to actually get done. You could operate parallel and get a lot done here. Now with that, we didn't actually stop there. So this one I'm going to actually see if I could do a little bit of a live demo. First let me describe this for you. Okay. So what's the future of insurance? So who's our competitors? Okay. Who's the greatest threat in insurance? So if you think about that, and you think about the word digital, and then you could think about what digital really means is simply that consumers have more power than we do. Right? So a consumer has choice. A consumer is going to be able to choose any platform, any tool, any vendor. I think Forrester says it as the age of the customer. That's what we're in. So when you think about that, our goal is to say, you know what? Forget products, forget forms, forget applications, forget insurance. Let's engage a consumer. Doesn't have to be a customer, but a consumer in a way that's meaningful for them, that allows us to build a relationship with you and your family and your legacy, your grandkids to come and your great-grandkids. And just, it's something free and it's out there and use it. And the goal is that when you do that, you normally find that you're 3 times more likely to buy from a company you have an emotional connection with. Right? Apple's a great example of that. USA is a good insurance example. So there was a concept we had. Literally, this is something which was an idea I had on a plane ride, which was a little bumpy plane ride, a little rough. And you start to think, for yourself, like you take out your iPhone and you're like, hey, let me just record a video, but then you think, who would ever get it? Right? So the goal was to say, it started out as something simple. It started out with saying, imagine a place where you could store your legacy entrusted in a secure cloud-based environment, not on your device. your digital assets, your lockbox, every event of your life. Keep it there. It could be contracts and documents or photos or videos. Keep it there and be able to target who should receive it at a future date or event. So very simple, like my brother and sister are both here. I could say, I know I'm traveling during my sister's birthday. I could today record a message in infinity, targeted to be released to her at that date. You could attach a gift card if you wanted to, $25. Bigger? Okay. So, and you could basically go ahead and actually start to build a relationship in a private social network with just the things that are important to you. So think about 600 gigs of data each of us generates every year. That's the number I heard. That's fascinating. Every receipt, every store you walk into, every time you use your device. So imagine you had a place to just store what's important of that. So those high-8 videos at home that you might want to give to your kids one day of your parents or your grandparents, but they're too young to understand. You could target for them to be released at a future date. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot if we could. Let's try it. So the way I demo Infinity is pretty interesting. So it's an idea we had. We have a patent pending on this whole concept of future dated packages. Picture a FedEx package, digital FedEx package with anything you want to put in it for a future date. And I like to demo it with my own personal account. So, this is pretty interesting. I guess you could say, the colors look better on the phone, but I'm not sure if it's a loose connection or not. But you could basically see that, my Infinity, I created a package called For When I Turn 50. And it could be, don't forget how much fun it was to code at my last job. It could be the $1 billion idea, which I recorded in an airport. I won't play this with sound for you guys. So, but the video would basically come back up, and I'm going to come back out. So it could be my just in case folder. So in case something did happen, here is everything from my 401k plan, information. And this is a live document. And you could combine that with videos or contracts. It could be, literally, my son, when he turns 18, he only wanted a Wii U last year for the holidays. So I was literally waiting online for hours and hours outside the Nintendo store in the cold. So I figure when he's 18, I'll send this to Spencer, my son, and actually remind him how good I was to do that. But literally, there's a little voiceover here, and that's me in front of the store, which I did get it, which is fun, but it took a little while. And the whole goal is it could be when I land in Japan. It could be a location base. So as I actually land in Japan, Tokyo, this was the restaurant that I actually liked visiting, and that's the menu, all together in one place. So what's the goal? The goal is it's a whole new way to think about customers, right? We're focusing on just a need. It's a need that we saw that's out there. Alistair says 20% chance of success. I'm hoping a little more, but that's a good number, actually. The truth is, we don't know if it succeeds or fails, but this was built in a startup within a 145-year-old company that has 70,000 employees. It was built by technology and launched by technology. And I think I'm good with that. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the time.